We are live. Welcome, everyone. It is 12:30 on the dot, so we're going to get started. First, I actually want to know where you're dialing in from or where you're joining from, because if you were in the Northeast, I'm in Boston. We just got hit with a massive snowstorm. So if you if you are hit with this massive snowstorm with not one, but two school snow days, they get the days off, but we still got to work. So definitely make sure that you are dropping in the chat where you're calling in from, where you're joining from, and how much snow you got. I want to know how much snow you got. I think we got about 20 inches over here in Boston. Even parts around Boston got more than that. So I'd love to know. Let me know where you're calling in from and how much snow you got. Now, today is a day that I really wanted to focus on career crossroads. It's during a time of the year when a lot of people start thinking about where they are in their career, in their job, and really in their life. Now, I'm Adivi Vargas, if we haven't met. I'm an executive coach, and I spent nearly 2 decades as a lawyer and HR executive, leading employee relations and leadership development inside very fast paced organizations. So I've been on all sides of the career crossroads conversation. I've coached lawyers and leaders who feel stagnant, restless, unhappy, trying to decide what to do with that, like whether to stay, whether to leave, push through, or make a change. And I've also been the executive inside organizations watching incredibly talented people, high performing, high potential folks make career decisions, sometimes strategically and sometimes reactively, and everything in between. So I've seen what works and I've seen what doesn't. I've seen what pans out and what doesn't pan out. And that's why I wanted to share some of the biggest mistakes I've seen people make at a career crossroads and how to avoid them. Because most people don't arrive at a crossroads because everything is fine. They may say it's fine, but it's not really fine inside. They arrive at this kind of inflection point because something isn't working anymore. And when I meet with clients for the first time who are at that inflection point, at that crossroads, the first thing they say is that they're unhappy. They say, I'm just really unhappy. And they're unhappy with something. So maybe it's their boss. The boss who's not supportive is not a strong leader. So they leave nothing to aspire to. They don't inspire you. Or a boss that only points out everything that you do wrong and has not shown any interest in really developing you or helping you succeed. It could be the environment, right? The culture, the pace. Maybe it's an unnecessary urgent pace. Maybe it's the work has consumed their entire life. And they'll say to me things like, I can't live like this anymore. What am I working so hard for? What am I doing all this for? Or they could also be unhappy because their growth feels like it's stagnated. So they're not being challenged the way that they want to be. They know that they're capable of much more, but they're not able to access any of that potential. So if any of those resonate, let me know in the chat. It could be a mixture of some of those for you, or maybe it's only one, but let me know if any of those resonate. And as you let me know, I have to acknowledge the no snow in Arizona. The no snow in Arizona. Listen, I think in Boston, we've gotten maybe 4 feet of snow total so far. Maybe that's too, maybe that's overestimating it. But Amy, you would know if that's an overestimation because you're in Boston and I know you. So Boston, 16 inches, yes. And I'm west of Boston, so I think we got a little bit more. But I love the no snow in Arizona, and I love that you were able to not have any interruption in your week as we were here. Although I love the snow, I prefer to look at the snow while I'm inside, cozy and safe. Now, whatever the reason, for you if you are unhappy or restless or feeling like something is not working for me as it used to in my work, in my job, in my career. Typically, you're having some kind of internal chatter, mind chatter, some internal mental negotiation that often sounds like, do I just stay and manage this better? Maybe I just need to change how I'm doing things. Maybe I need a thicker skin. Do I need better boundaries, a different approach? How do I do that though? And then you go into, or do I leave? But what if the grass isn't greener? There are parts of the job that I like. There are people I really like here. I've been here for a long time. I'm respected here. I have a strong reputation here, credibility, and I don't want to start over somewhere else. I don't want to have to prove myself again after I worked so hard to do that here. And okay, well, at least here, I know what I'm dealing with. I know what I'm getting. And if I make a move or I do something different, I don't know what's on the other side. And maybe it's worse. If any of that resonates, let me know. Because here's what I want you to notice. Those thoughts you're having, that mental chatter is real. Like you're actually having those thoughts and they're real to you. But your evaluation of the situation keeps shifting. So when you have those thoughts, they're like ping ponging back and forth in your mind. One week it feels fine, fine. It feels tolerable. The next week it feels intolerable, or it could be okay, but maybe it changes every day. One conversation with someone or one meeting makes you question everything and you're like, I'm over it. And then another conversation or meeting or even project makes you feel like, no, it wasn't that bad. Maybe I'm overreacting. It's maybe I should just stay. So when your assessment keeps changing like that, you going back and forth and ping ponging, it's almost impossible to make any decisions. But you're not confused. That's the thing. You're not confused. You say you're confused, but you're actually not, because you can absolutely identify and pinpoint what's not working for you. What you haven't figured out yet is what that all means and what to do with it. So you haven't figured out how to interpret all of those thoughts about your situation. But that's only because you don't have a consistent way and a reliable way to evaluate what's actually happening. And that's where I see the biggest mistakes get made when people are at this career crossroads or inflection point. So let's get into them. Let's talk about the first mistake I see people make. The first is that people make a move away from something without being clear about what they're moving towards. Either you're running away from something or you're running towards something. We want you to run towards something. So a lot of people let frustration or exhaustion drive the decision. Kim, hi Kim, Michelle, how are you? Oh yeah, no snow in LA. I know it. Oh, LA seems very nice right now with the sun. But sometimes, they let anger, resentment drive the decision. Annoyance, I'm frustrated, I'm unappreciated, I'm undervalued. They let that heightened emotional state, which could proceed for a very long time, they let that drive the decision instead of letting a clear purpose and direction drive the decision. So if your boss is mistreating you, is unsupportive, the pace feels unsustainable, if your life has been swallowed by work, your confidence has taken a hit because you've been berated or undervalued, unappreciated, treated unfairly, and you remember what it was like to not feel like that, of course, you're going to think about leaving. Who wouldn't? You're human. But here's the problem. A lot of people make the decision to stay or go based solely on, this is really bad, I can't take it anymore, so I got to get out of here. And they haven't yet explored or gotten clear on, well, what do I actually want and need instead? In this season of my life and my career, at this time in my life and my career, they haven't really explored or gotten clear on, what really matters most to them right now. Is it flexibility? Is it growth in my career? Is it, I just want less stress. I want to be able to just maintain what I got going on at home. Is it visibility? Do you want to step up and climb the ladder a little bit more? Do you want to do that? Or you're like, no, I'm good. I don't need that, but I need this to be stable and it's not stable for me right now. And people have a hard time exploring and getting clear on what specifically would be better for me. What specifically would be the thing that would work for me versus just focusing on what does not work for me. And even more importantly, a lot of people haven't tried anything different yet. So, if there's an issue with your boss or with people that you're working with, have you had conversations? Not just one, I would say a lot more than one. If it's the workload, have you reset expectations? Have you tried to share with someone what's on your plate, what needs to be taken off your plate, what could be taken off your plate? Have you talked to someone about that? Whoever, even if it's your team, it could be your boss, it could be the more senior person. Have you had conversations about that? If it's overcommitment, like you're overcommitting yourself, right? Have you tested a boundary where you're going to pull back just a bit on one thing at a time, right? To see if that could work for you. And that takes time, but have you tried it? If you're feeling stagnated in your growth and in your work, have you asked for stretch work or a new project or a new opportunity more than once? Right? More than once. We have to try more than once because sometimes the first time it doesn't work. But most of the time, what I see is people haven't experimented yet. They haven't tried a different approach yet. They're just over it. They're like, I'm just done. Right? But when you haven't tried changing how you operate, it's more like an adjustment, right? And you haven't defined what you want next, leaving can really become a crapshoot. It's not a strategy, it becomes a crapshoot. And to me, hope is not a strategy. I'm not saying you should stay in something that's wrong for you. I'm saying do not throw your hands up and walk away when you haven't gathered enough information and you don't know what direction you're headed in and why. So before you make a move, before you make a big decision, you need more data. You need more information. Information about what happens when you set and enforce a boundary. What happens when you try to advocate for yourself? What's the response you get? That's an answer for you, but what's the response you get? Information about what actually feels different for you and is different for you when you start operating a little bit differently, when you start approaching your work a little differently. Otherwise, when you don't have that information, that data, you're not choosing a direction with a specific purpose. You're just trying to stop the bleed. Like you're trying to stop the frustration. You're trying to stop what's bothering you because you're over it, right? But we need to be a little bit more intentional about the direction we're going in and why, and less reactive. And when you are able to start gathering information, you're trying different things, you become less reactive because you're not in a heightened emotional state as much. So let me give you an example, because I have clients who've come to me completely drained and done. No time for themselves, they're working nonstop, always available, constantly saying yes. And their default conclusion is, to me, like one of the first things I say is, this is unsustainable. I can't do this anymore. I got to go. But when we look closer, almost every time, they haven't tried to change their relationship with work in years. And I mean like in decades. They're still operating the way that they did in their 20s, where, they push, work is everything, say yes to everything, be available at all hours. But now they're senior leaders with more responsibility, or you're a manager, you have a team, competing demands. And if you have children, oh man, that's a huge responsibility. And so the operating system you used before doesn't work as much anymore. So instead of quitting, we work on putting the job in its container. And we experimented. So I remember one client committed to no calls before 8 a.m. This is a client who would go to bed at midnight and have her calls begin at 6 a.m. She committed to not being online after 9 p.m. unless it was really urgent. So if there's an urgent matter, urgent project, and she protected exercise blocks during the week. We started with one block that was like 20 minutes. She eventually got to 3 or 4 times a week for an hour, but we started very small. And when she was trying these things, nothing fell apart, nothing collapsed, right? She didn't lose anyone's respect. In fact, that client, she got promoted during that period. Her team expanded. And what I love about her transformation is that the women on her team and the men as well, they noticed that she was less stressed and she was calmer and she was more grounded. They would tell her that, hey, I've noticed a change in you. And I feel like because you're doing something different, I can do that too. So she realized, part of the exhaustion wasn't the job, it was how she was operating inside of the job. It was her relationship with the job. So I want to ask you, if you relate to that, have you already tried adjusting? Or are you still hoping it will change on its own? You don't have to answer in the comments, but just think about that for yourself. Have you tried different things? Or are you still hoping it will change on its own? Because I'm going to tell you something that many won't tell you. It's not going to change on its own. Environments and other people, sometimes other people, change for you at a glacial pace. Cultures and workplaces, for sure, change at a glacial pace unless there's a monumental event that accelerates change. All right. So that client I was talking about who got promoted, she stayed. She stayed in that job. She made it work and she became happy in that job. Even though when she first came to me, she was convinced, I'm done. I'm over it. She would always say, I'm done. I'm done. So let me be clear. The point is not to stay at all costs. Do not confuse my words. The point is not to stay at all costs, and I'm not saying that it's all on you if your work situation sucks. It's your fault. No, no, no. I'm not saying it's your fault. My point is instead that before you make a big move, make sure you have used the agency you already have to adjust what's within your control. Understand how you're operating and why you operate like that. Understand your own relationship with work, the meaning it gives you or the meaning it doesn't give you. Are you attached to something when it comes to work? And I'm telling you from coaching so many on this, attaching your self-worth to your work is very dangerous because you are relying on something external to make you feel whole. And that's where we get into a lot of trouble. So that is a huge step, is understanding how you operate and why within work. And then adjust what needs adjusting. Test a boundary, have a conversation, ask for the opportunity. You get information through your actions. You do something, you're going to feel a kind of way about that. You may feel like, oh, this is really uncomfortable. And that's information. When you try to have the conversation and you're not being received well, or someone isn't receptive, that's information, right? Because when you've done those things, then your decision stops being so reactive. It's informed. And then you can confidently say, hey, I tried everything within my control to make this work. And if I choose to leave, I'm not walking away out of frustration, out of anger, out of resentment. I'm not upset. I'm walking away with information. I know what I'm looking for. I know what kind of work experience I want. I have a direction. And that is a much more grounded, powerful, confident position to be in. So who here would like to feel that way or has felt that way, I would say, about a decision that they're making about their career, that they've made about their career? Think about that. Have you made a decision in your career where you're like, you know what, this is it. I feel confident in this decision. It is right for me. I have tried the things and this is the best thing for me at this point. If you have, let us know. Relationship inside of the job. Yes, yes. Relationship with the job and then inside of the job. Absolutely. Amy, it's good to see you. All right, the second mistake. Let's talk about it. The second mistake I see is confusing. This is a big one. Is confusing a hard stretch with a bad fit. So, in other words, something feels hard, and you assume it means something is fundamentally wrong with the job, with the work environment. Or the opposite, you tell yourself, it's just a rough patch, when deep down you know it's more than that because that rough patch has been 2, 3 years. Okay. You can survive a hard season. We can survive hard seasons. We can do really hard SHIT. We can. You can survive a hard season, but you cannot sustainably stay in the wrong environment. You cannot do that to yourself. The cost is too high. So a hard season might look like intensity. It's intensity, but it's tied to something specific, right? There's an endpoint. It's a major project, but it has kind of an endpoint, or you know when it's going to accelerate and when there's going to be more of a lull. Maybe it's a new leadership role. When you are in a new leadership role, you're accelerating. There's more intensity. Maybe it's a team transition, or there's a gap on the team that you have to fill. That's a lot of work. It's going to be a little hectic for a bit. Or even a personal life season, that, especially caregiving, woof, that is challenging, right? Where something is acute happening with the caregiving, and that's making everything feel a lot more hectic and harder. So there's pressure in the hard season, but you understand why it's there. It's stretching you, and you can point to how you're growing because of it, or you can identify the endpoint, or you know when it's going to calm down, right? Now, how many of you have had hard seasons? All of us have had hard seasons, right? Here's what it looks like when the problem isn't the season. It's the environment, it's the system. So it's not just intensity, it's the erosion of your energy, your confidence. God, confidence is such a huge one. I cannot stress this enough. If you are in a situation where you came in and you're a high performer and you had a lot of confidence and you're starting to feel like, I don't even know why I'm here. I don't even know what value I add because I'm being treated like I have no value. That is a major sign that you need to seriously consider pivoting. I'm just going to be honest about that because nothing is worth the mental, emotional, spiritual health declining to that extent. Okay. So it's just, then you're going to have to get some information. But again, know that that's a huge, huge red flag. And if it's a red flag that's been waved for a very long time, pay attention. So when you are in a wrong environment, that's what it looks like. It's declining in your energy. What used to get you excited and what used to bring you some joy at work, it just doesn't exist anymore. Your confidence is declining. Your sense of who you are, you're kind of losing that. And you start second guessing things that you used to feel really good about. For many people, they say they feel smaller. They feel like they have to shrink themselves. They feel like their values are compromised in some way. Or the environment rewards behavior that doesn't align with their values, doesn't align with how they want to live and how they want to work. And even when you try to adjust, you try to make the changes of the things within your control. You've had the conversations, you have tried the boundaries, but that core dynamic hasn't moved and it doesn't move. That's not a season. That's the culture. That is the environment. That is the system. So a hard season requires resilience and adjustment. You got to adapt and adjust. But a misalignment with the system, that requires a faster decision. And the mistake is confusing the two. And there's a high cost of confusing the two. Because if you treat a hard season like a bad fit, you might walk away from an incredible opportunity, an incredible growth opportunity, or just like a good job that is just a little rough for a little bit. But if you treat a bad fit like a hard season, you can slowly and quietly and then very quickly burn out, right? Burnout is typically kind of slow and then accelerates at the end because then everything kind of falls apart. Because it's not just erosion of the confidence that I was talking about, it's chronic stress. It takes a toll on your body. It's waking up already tired. It's the Sunday night dread. that never really goes away, or the dread of like getting the email or the text. You're like, oh, like just dread. You just don't, it's just, you don't want to do it anymore. It's too much. Or you're constantly on edge, or you start snapping at people at home, especially your kids, because your nervous system is just overtaxed. You're just, it's too much. So there, you're not just stretched. Like a hard season is like a stretch. You're being stretched. When it's wrong for you, when the environment is wrong for you, you become depleted. And that's a very different experience. So when you think about your role, even if it's your current role, or you even recall the time when you felt, did you feel stretched or did you feel depleted? Because stretched means you're tired, but you're growing and it feels worth it. And you know there's an endpoint, or you know there's going to be a low. Depleted means you're tired and it's been costing you way more than it's been benefiting you for a long time. And sometimes, no matter how much you adjust, the environment doesn't. Yes, it is so hard to know when to pivot if your confidence is shaken, because then you start questioning everything. You start questioning yourself even more than you would have. And so you don't know what's up from down sometimes. And it's hard to know how to listen to yourself when you're in an environment that has forced you to question yourself at every turn. Yes. And some point, you can feel like you're up against a brick wall, or you're tired of hitting it every day. You're like, I'm tired of hitting this thing every single day. This is unsustainable. I have tried all of the things. I had a client in that situation where we did the work. She had the conversations, so many conversations. I cannot tell you how many we role played. And she had them. She set boundaries. She enforced some boundaries. I mean, she was really doing her best. She adjusted how she operated in every area that we could come up with that was within her control. There was so much not in her control, but the environment was unrelenting. And when I say the environment, the people, because people make up a culture, people make up an environment. And what they required of her was a daily negotiation for her. It was exhausting for her, right? Daily trying to protect her time, daily trying to advocate for herself, and negotiating with herself too about, was it worth it? Is it not worth it? Do I say something? Do I not say something? And she realized that no amount of adjusting on her end was going to move the needle enough for her to really enjoy the job and, for her to stay. It wasn't about trying harder. It was the work environment and the culture that wasn't a fit for her. It wasn't built for the way that she wanted to work and the way she wanted to live. So we had to address all of her beliefs that were keeping her unhappy and in that job. Like, well, other people would do anything to have this job. Other people would do anything to be in this position. Am I a weak person for not being able to do this? Why can't I just handle it? Why can't I just push through? I should be grateful to have this job. And then the one I hear a lot, I mean, if I hear all of those all the time, but the other one is, what's wrong with me? Like, why can't I just get it together? Why can't I just get it together? It's not about that. It's not about that. The answer is nothing is wrong with you. Nothing was wrong with her. So she stopped trying to force it. And she updated her resume and she started exploring other opportunities. But here's the thing, she took her time. Like, she really took her time. She didn't rush. She wasn't grasping for anything. She wasn't in a state of emergency. Because if she was, then she may not have taken the right role, right? And she eventually landed a role that I mean, when I tell you the story, we were talking about the interview she had and the roles she was in the running for in the final round. And she told me about this role that she was in for the final round. And she said to me, but I'm not putting my eggs in that basket. I mean, I probably won't get it. And I said, we talked about that. We talked about, why would you think you wouldn't get that role? You're qualified for this role. You said you had great conversations with everybody at that company. You really liked the GC. It seemed like you guys had a great rapport. And Then she calls, I think maybe 2 weeks later, and said that she got the job. And this is a job that she wanted so badly, but to protect herself, she was telling herself, I probably won't get it, because she didn't want to be disappointed. Right. But she got that job. She started in that job and she loves the job. And she's a lawyer at a company whose culture really fits who she is and how she works. And she feels so valued and she feels so appreciated. And she feels like it fits with her life. So what I want you to see is that her decision to leave, again, wasn't like an escape. It wasn't a quick decision. She tried to change things that she could, and it still wasn't going to work. And she knew the kind of culture she wanted to work in. She knew what she needed based on the season of her life. She wanted more time with her kids. She wanted more time for herself. And when I say more time, all I mean is she wanted evenings, like 7 p.m. and on. I'm not talking about, only working 8 to 3. Although if that's you, that's okay too, right? We all have different seasons we're in and different needs and wants we have and different life circumstances, okay? But her decision to leave, what's really important about it is for you to understand that it was made from alignment. It wasn't made from running away from anything, right? You can push through a season. You cannot push through a culture and an environment and a system that is not aligned with how you want to work and how you want to live. That you cannot do that. You can try for a very long time, but remember, what is the cost to me if I do that? And what will I gain if I don't do that? That's mistake number 2. Hard season versus bad fit of an environment. Third mistake, the third mistake I see is trying to think your way through a major career decision without a clear process. So most people are just thinking a lot. We ruminate. Oh, we ruminate so much. I do it too. Most of us just thinking. It's like the same thoughts on repeat. Thinking about what's wrong, thinking about what happened last week, last month, yesterday, this morning, that email. Oh, did you see her attitude? Did you see his tone? Did you hear that? Thinking about how irritated you are by certain people. And let me tell you, I think in every job, certain people are irritating, right? Thinking about how hard you work, wondering why you're doing it all, what's it all for? Thinking about whether to stay, to go, what to do, how to have this conversation, how to have that conversation. But you're not walking yourself through the decision in a structured way. You're looping back to those same thoughts over and over. So to be clear, doing nothing is always a decision. Even if you feel stuck, that's still a decision. It's not passive, it's very active. You're choosing to stay where you are, and that is okay. It is okay to say, I'm going to stay right here. If you're truly accepting and at peace with the consequences of that choice. Let me say that again. This is really important because so many of us want peace and want calmness and want freedom. So many people want those things. So I'm going to say that again. It is okay to stay exactly where you are. It's okay to do that. There's no judgment here. As long as you are truly accepting and at peace with what that means. You accept and can be at peace with the consequences of that choice. Because getting clarity at this kind of inflection point, at our crossroads, is not just about asking yourself 1 or 2 questions. It is layered, it is nuanced. It's about going deeper with other questions like, and my clients who are on this live right now know this is true, is what matters most to me right now in this season of my life, which is different from last year, from 5 years ago, from 10 years ago, from 15, 20 years ago, right? It's about getting deeper with questions like, what direction am I actually trying to move towards? And why does that matter to me? Why is that meaningful to me? What am I willing to try? What am I no longer willing to accept or tolerate that I've tolerated before, but I can no longer tolerate? What trade-offs am I willing to make? Every choice has a consequence. Which ones am I willing to accept? Right? What do I need to do to test things out and move forward? Those questions are very different from should I stay or leave? Should I go for the promotion? Should I move to a different role? Right? Stay, leave, move, pivot. That's the final decision. And then you have to implement that, right? But that's the final decision. Most people, though, start there and skip the evaluation in the middle, which is what do you want? What do you need? What have you tried? What are you willing to trade off? And where are you headed? Right? If you don't do that evaluation, you're going to keep going back and forth on the should I go? Should I leave? Should I stay? What do I do? So if you're listening into this and thinking, I don't want to keep spinning my wheels here. This is why I created the Your Time to Rise Reset, right? This is a program that I created based on all the work I've done with clients one-on-one. And it's not about pushing you to leave. It's not about convincing you to stay. I'm going to be honest with you. Most of my clients, I would say 80% stay. They stay because they find a different way. Do they stay permanently? Not always. Some of them do. And they get promoted and they climb up that leadership ladder. A lot of them stay and it's temporary. They say, okay, I'm going to stay, but I'm going to try this for 6 months and I'm going to reassess in a year. Or they stay and they say, I'm going to try this for 2 more years. And if nothing changes, then I'm going to start strategizing to plan to go. So it's how you stay. It's how you leave. That's important too, right? But the program that I've created, Your Time to Rise Reset, it's about helping you make an intentional decision instead of defaulting to the status quo. Because right now, for a lot of you listening, you're making a decision. It's just the default decision. And sometimes you need help with making a deliberate one, a more intentional one. And so the program, it starts next week. And that's what we're going to do. Because when your decision is grounded, whatever it is, in clarity, in direction, in a plan of action, you feel much more confident about it. It feels right. It feels good in your bones. You know it. And that might look like I said, maybe you stay and reassess in 6 months. Maybe you take a sabbatical. Maybe you stay and implement a clear plan, right? Maybe you decide, you know what, I'm going to leave, but I'm going to leave once I've lined up the right opportunity. So what do I do to deal with what I'm dealing with right now until I get that opportunity? That's a very intentional decision too. That's the point of this, is to make it intentional, to be clear, to make it confident so you can feel more at peace with it. And that's what you get from this program. It's 4 weeks. We meet once a week. And you also get these 4 bonus sessions that I have delivered in different ways that are so helpful when it comes to integrating and implementing a decision. And when I say that, I mean, these are things that get in your way of actually integrating and implementing a decision, like pressure, leadership pressure, like how do I enforce boundaries? How do I actually do this in a way that works for me? How do I move through guilt? How do I move through possibly disappointing people and the discomfort I feel when I do that? People pleasing, detaching your self-worth from your work, right? All of these bonus sessions are live. So there's live coaching in there, but all of them are designed to support you as you're integrating and implementing a decision and things that get in your way of actually following through, because follow through is just as important as the decision itself. I will say a lot of us make decisions. A lot of us had 2026 goals. It's almost March, and most of those goals are not going to be accomplished. That's just based on research, right? I'm not saying that your goals aren't going to be accomplished. But the research tells us that most of those goals are not accomplished. Why? It's not because people didn't decide it was important to them. It is important to them. But what happens is that people struggle the most with execution. They struggle the most with integration and following through on the promises they make to themselves, right? So this program really helps you follow through. It's structured, it's step by step to help you be more confident and at peace with the direction, the decision, and actually integrating it. So I'm going to put the link to the reset in the chat, in the comments. And because you joined me here on LinkedIn, you can use the code RESET, RESET, for $300 off when you sign up. So we start next week. And if you can't make it one week, you just watch the replay and you can pick back up. So if what we've been talking about is describing where you are and you're over spinning your wheels and you're feeling unsure about things, this program really is made for you. It's what you probably need next. So click on the link, I'll share it with you, get your $300 off and see, I hope to see you next week in the Zoom room. And you know what? You can also share it with a friend. If you know someone who's like, this person could really need this, definitely share it with them and have them connect with me. I'd love to talk to them. But I want to answer some of your questions. So the reset is next, it starts next week. It's 4 weeks, and then bonus sessions are another 4 weeks. So it's really 8 weeks of support. And if you want that, I'll throw the link in the chat. Go get that. But I also want to answer your questions while I have you because we have some time left. So any questions, ask away. As I throw this link in the chat, let me know what your questions are. I'm watching the comments now. There you go. I just threw the link in the chat. And here's the reset code. I'll type this in the chat as well. Reset 4 is your code. Are there any other mistakes you feel like you've made or you've seen other people make when it comes to when they're at a career crossroads? Oh, Shanae, how do you think approaching goals in 2026 is different than other years? So 2026, I don't think it's different in terms of environment. I think we can talk about what's going on in the US. We can talk about what's going on in the world. I could talk about that for a very long time and my disappointment with it. But I think you always have self-agency. This is what I really try to explain and encourage people to take advantage of, is that sometimes we think we don't have as much agency to change things as we do. And I'm specifically talking about your career and your personal life. So oftentimes you think that things are happening to you. And why is this happening to me? But you have the agency to decide, I'm not going to tolerate that anymore. I'm going to do something different. I'm going to try something different, and it's going to feel uncomfortable as F. It's going to be uncomfortable as F, but I'm going to try it anyway because the way that it's going right now isn't working for me. And if I stay right here, it's going to continue to cause me pain and not work for me. Right? So I don't think there's anything different about goals for 2026. I think it's really about how do we harness our own self-agency and decide how we want to be intentional. And I love anti-goals. So saying, hey, I'm not tolerating this anymore. I'm not accepting this anymore. And so in 2026, I'm going to focus on those things. I'm not doing those things anymore because they don't fulfill me. They don't satisfy me. And they're just contributing to my stress. Have you had clients where the bad fit is a partner they work with and were they able to pivot in the firm? Oh, that's a good question. Yes. So it depends on how big the firm is, right? So in a bigger firm, easier. Smaller firm, harder. Bigger firm, you have more options. And it depends on your practice group as well, right? Is it you and this person and that's it for your practice group and you're holding the group together? Or can you actually move a little bit in the firm? There are other issues like, do other people see that also as an issue? Is it just you and that person that has the problem? But yes, there are ways to do something different. My point in the adjustment and the adapting is that you try it And if it doesn't work, you can say, you know what, I actually tried making these adjustments and it didn't work. I actually tried to pivot within the firm and I've done all this legwork. I've talked to all the people and I'm still getting the runaround because people oftentimes don't tell you no. Sometimes people won't tell you no, it's not possible, but they want to keep you. They want to keep you because you're good at what you do. I see it all the time, regardless if it's a firm or it's a company. People like people who do work. And if you work hard, people love that. So, what do? They'll tell you enough to keep you. They're not going to promise you anything. They're going to say, I'll see what I can do. We'll work on that. But they're just keeping you just enough because why? They need you to do the work. They need a high performer. They need someone who's going to be reliable and do the work, and that's you. So be very careful about those things. Where, especially at a law firm, if you're not getting straight answers, those are red flags. You have to pay attention to that. So you can absolutely pivot within, but I've seen it happen, but it requires a lot of legwork and a lot of conversation. And you're going to have conversations over a long period of time. But like I said, once you start realizing they're not giving me straight answers, then you know it's time that maybe it's not going to work out. And they may not tell you that. They may not be honest with you about that. But it's your job to decipher when you're getting BS'd and when people are telling you the truth. How do you think AI, this is Shanae's question, how do you think AI is going to mess with people's identity when if you're a coder now and AI can do your work? Yes. So in terms of this is even if you're not a coder, you're a lawyer, you're a business professional, whatever your job is, AI is changing the landscape. So if you are, even if you're a lawyer, there are AI tools now that are trying to standardize certain things, like certain contracts, brief writing, they're all out there. And you have to learn how to use them and you have to learn how to train them. Because especially if you're a lawyer, listen, I've heard this from judges where lawyers will submit briefs that are, let's just say, it's like grounds for disbarment. You have to be very careful with the quality of your work when you're using AI. AI messes up, it lies. It also can be very good, depending on what you're using it for and how you use it. You have to be able to master it and have good intentions and know why you're using it and how to use it. So I would say AI is definitely changing the landscape for a lot of professions. And one of your goals for 2026, this is one of my goals too. Shanae knows this because she's an expert in this as well, is how do I harness AI to make my job easier while maintaining a high quality of my work? So if I'm writing, I'm a writer, so I write every day. I don't use AI as much for writing, but I will ask it, can you help me organize? Can you help me restructure? I'm struggling with how to say this in a way that's clear. Can you give me some suggestions? I'm going to be more efficient and the quality is going to remain high. But you have to get more comfortable with AI. It's also going to make you more valuable. As organizations grow and mature and people start using AI tools, who do you think they're going to look to help them with that? People who are on the growth edge of AI, people who are interested in learning, people who are passionate about it. And even if you're not passionate about it, you care enough to mature your organization with it. And so you could become one of the point people for how do we use AI here? What's the best tool for AI? And if you can learn to make yourself irreplaceable in that way, I don't use that word lightly. Most people to me are replaceable at companies and firms, replaceable. But AI, the way it's changing the game, you can start to make yourself irreplaceable if you can be one of those people who people turn to say, hey, I'll use Shanae's name. Hey, Shanae, she understands how this works, and she's been the one training this bot or whatever it is. You should go talk to her. She knows where this is going. Like if you can get a little bit ahead of it, you can become irreplaceable. You can become so highly valued, and then you have leverage. You have leverage for being like, hey, so about that, that VP position I was talking to you about 2 years ago, and you can show your value because you have leverage, because you're thinking ahead and you want to drive results even more for your firm or your organization. I think AI is going to be huge, Shanae. And I'm already seeing that in a lot of the companies that my clients work in, how they're starting to have to train AI, and some of them absolutely hate it. And we've talked about that. We've talked about how you have to get comfortable with the discomfort of learning something new and understand that if you're not doing it, your counterpart is doing it and getting ahead faster than you. And you don't want that to happen. You want to maintain your value and the quality of your work. Yes, AI is a tool we all need to learn. Yes. Any other questions? Yes. Oh, Michelle, I see your response to my question of like, what are the other mistakes people make? And it's making a quick decision. Yes. When your decision is too quick, I often find that the decision is quick because you're being emotional. And that's okay. We're human, we have emotions. But you don't want to be in your feelings when you make a very significant major career decision. You want it to be more anchored and more grounded. And you want it to be from a place of intention and direction. Again, you don't want to be running away from a feeling. You want to be running towards something that's meaningful to you. And then you know exactly why you're running towards it. Any other questions for me before we close? We have 9 minutes. I'd love to answer any questions that you have. I'm reading through all your comments as I ask that question. Francis asked, if someone is new at AI, how would you train yourself and learn that particular tool? Oh, let me tell you, this is going to sound, maybe this sounds too rudimentary, but there are people like, okay, Shanae here on this, who's in this room, who's commenting, Shanae Murray. She's very good with AI. Literally follow her on YouTube, and she shows you how to use AI on YouTube. I have learned so much from her. I look on YouTube. I Google, right? Like, how do I do this? How do I use ChatGPT? How do I become better at ChatGPT? You have to go to leaders of these kinds of tools. And I don't say leaders as in people that work there. I mean, people that are using the tool who are in a similar position of you, like lawyers who use AI, like make sure that you know how to use AI. So you go to someone who's becoming an expert in that or who knows a little bit more than you do, right? The person can be 3 steps ahead, great to learn from. So I would say you have to follow people and connect with people who know how to use it and be willing to make the commitment to take the time. It takes time and energy to learn that tool. So it's not just about like going on the tool and experimenting. I would say you also need to learn about the tool and what makes it most efficient and how you can harness all the things it has to offer. So I would say follow someone who uses that particular tool and is teaching how it works. Because also the thing with these tools, whether it's Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, they're changing and evolving every single day. Every single day I'll go on and be like, oh, there's a new model. Oh, what does this new model do? You want to keep up with that. I hope that helps, Francis. And then Shanae asks how to use AI at work as a lawyer. Yeah, so with AI in law firms or even in companies if you're in-house, you can use it for a lot of things. It does help you with brief writing, legal research. There are different AI tools that help. But what everyone is realizing is that they need to be trained. They need to be trained with the way that your organization does things. So, and usually the ones who train the AI tool are more senior people. So the other piece to that is, if you are listening, and I have to say this because I've heard of this too many times to not mention it, you cannot solely rely on AI to do your work. Part of what you are being paid to do and the value of your work is that you have critical and analytical thinking abilities, right? You have to think creatively about making certain arguments. how you make them, the evidence that supports them. And you cannot use AI as a crutch. You have to use it as an accelerant. Okay. What I've heard is people drafting briefs and thinking AI is the expert and just submitting that to the court or submitting that to a partner. Please don't do that. That is not smart. That is not smart. I have a stronger word, but I will not use that. Please don't do that. Use your common sense. Use your judgment. You are the expert. AI is going to help you be better. AI is going to tell you, hey, you missed that part. Hey, that argument, actually, I'm seeing it from this side. What am I missing? Let AI help you get you better, but AI doesn't replace your brain. AI doesn't replace your brain. Do not limit your growth by thinking that AI knows everything more than you, especially if you're a lawyer and you're in a very highly specialized area. Please don't make that mistake. Use it as an accelerant, as support to make you more efficient, to make you better. Don't think that it is better than you. It is not. Shanae may disagree on the better, but it's not. I don't think it's there yet. I think for some tasks, for tasks that are automatic and can be automated, it is phenomenal. For deeply critically thinking, analytical thinking, has a lot of work to do. Don't let it replace you. But you have to learn to use it so it doesn't replace tasks that could be automated that you do. The other thing to mention about AI, since we're talking about it, regardless of your profession, is that you have to work with it enough so it gets to know your voice, your style, and what you need, right? So you have to spend some time with it. And if you are someone who uses it for email writing, a lot of people I know will use it for email writing because I get emails all the time written by AI. You want to make sure that it's in your voice and it sounds like a human. If you don't train AI in your voice, it's going to sound like a robotic human or a robot, not even a human. And that is very off-putting for someone receiving an email. And I will say that because I get plenty of emails from people that they write them with AI and it's not something I want to respond to. So be very careful with how much emphasis and how much you rely on AI for everyday tasks. If you're writing emails back and forth, do you really need AI? Sometimes you might, but if it's responding to someone, just write the email. You are a smart person. You don't think that AI is smarter than you or better at it. Like when it comes to a genuine exchange via email, you can write that. You don't have to over-engineer things. I think AI sometimes can create more work for you when you're unsure. It gives you all these suggestions and then it's like too much information. It's information overload. So just be very clear again about your intentions when you're using AI and what you need it for. And I wouldn't use it in every single day task, like emailing back and forth with someone because it can be a little bit too robotic if you have not trained it in your voice. I'm reading Tyler's comment, who made the pivot and started their own company and brand rather than finding another job. Yes, I have. Yes, I have. I've had clients who did all the things and then decided, you know what, I'm going to go off on my own. And I will say they had a job before they went off on their own. They had a job that could easily pivot into their own thing. So they weren't like a lawyer and they decided I'm going to go start a retail business. That's a bigger leap than, hey, I'm a lawyer, like I'm an employment lawyer, and I'm going to go start my own firm to help people with their employment law issues or to help companies defend against employment law lawsuits, right? So I would say that the leap was more, it's not seamless. Whenever you become an entrepreneur, that leap is not seamless. I always say it is professional and personal development boot camp on steroids. So I don't take that lightly when I mention the leap or I say it's seamless. What I mean is a subject matter. It wasn't a new subject matter. She was an expert in something and then just sold it for, on her own versus working for a company doing that service internally. Are there different mistakes you've seen or questions you suggest asking yourself if someone is thinking about going in that route? Huh. So that's another hour of of a LinkedIn Live. I recently have been talking to a lot of my friends who are also entrepreneurs doing very different things than what I do. Some similar, some different. And I would say that number one is one, don't rush that. You have to, again, have your intention and direction very clear. Number two, you have to have a plan. So before you quit your job, please have your finances in order. Have your finances in order. Have a plan for how you're going to generate revenue. What is your revenue generating activity? Is it going to be predictable? How can you make it more reliable? And I say that because that's what I had to learn. I'm saying what I had to learn personally and what I've seen with, in the entrepreneur community is that people want to share, want to start businesses. They get really, really excited and they quit their job because they're really passionate about this thing. They have the right intentions. They have this direction. They're running towards this amazing thing they want to create, but they haven't laid the foundation and the framework for what running a business requires. It is, I'm going to say this and it may be controversial, but it's what I have seen and observed and what I've experienced. Running your own business is 1,000 million times harder than being an employee. It's harder than being an employee because you know what? When you're an employee, you get to do your job. When you're an entrepreneur, at least when you're starting, you are your job, your marketing, your finance, you are everything. And when you are an employee at a company, even a lawyer at a law firm, you're doing your job. Now, when you're a partner, you got to do the marketing, you have to, develop business. But it's still not the same as when you do it on your own. Friends of mine who have left firms to start their own firms, left top 10 massive global law firms to start their own firms. They became HR, marketing, finance, all the things. So you have to be aware of the toll that's going to take on you. You have to be aware of how hard it's going to be. It's going to be very hard. You have to be aware of the mindset shift it requires. And that, especially if you are someone who worked at a very fast paced environment, which a lot of us do, and then you go off on your own and you actually want to take a bit of a break, at first you may want to do that, and how jarring it is for your body and your mind, because your body and your mind are used to going, 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 going. And when you take a step back even a little bit, your brain is like, what the F is happening? Why aren't we doing something? You need to be productive. And then it can get very negative very quickly. So working on your mindset, having a plan, having the right foundation and framework for if you do want to go on your own is so critical. I will say I feel the most alive and purposeful I've ever felt in my life. And it's the hardest thing I've ever done is being an entrepreneur. And it's something that you can absolutely do, but you must have the right support. Shanae here, she's somebody that supported me from the very beginning. I met Shanae 2 or 3 years before I left my corporate role and started doing this full time for, I think I've been doing this now for 3 years, but had my company for about 6 years. So I was constantly focused on my craft even before I went full time with it. That's another way to do it, is you do it on the side when you can, in terms of what's sustainable for you. And then you push that into full time when you feel like you're ready. But it does require a level of passion, commitment, and strategic planning to do this and to sustain it. Most people don't go past 2 years because it's really hard. But that's the thing that's the other thing I will emphasize is the commitment. You have to freaking commit. Like, this is not a game. You have to commit to yourself, to your business, to making it work. There are times when I would go, when I would go live and it was like one person, right? And that's okay. You have to start from somewhere. but that's hard for a lot of people who were high performing in their job for decades. It's very difficult to feel like you were at a place where even if you wanted to leave, you felt like I did really great work. Especially if you were highly valued and you felt that, like people made you feel very valued and people made you feel like you could do more at the company, but you decide, nah, I want to do something else because I'm called to something else. It's hard to leave that because you still love the validation and you love the love that you get, right? And when you're an entrepreneur, when you're starting, there's not many people who are clapping up for you unless you're in a mastermind or you have support. So I will say that support is critical. This is not a game. No, Shanae knows this. If I'm reading Shanae's comment, if you have golden handcuffs and something to lose and want to build a business, it's the best advice. People who do the opposite usually have nothing to lose. This is my case. Yes. Yes, Shanae. The golden handcuffs are why I would say who I speak with, why like 90% of people don't do their own business or don't even, by the way, not even do their own business. They don't move. They don't pivot. They're miserable. But I make so much money. I have this lifestyle. And so I'm going to stay. Again, this is what I always say. No judgment. Are you okay with the consequences of that choice? So I have this thing that I say to clients oftentimes, and it's this. If we're going to say we're going to make this decision, if you feel like this is a decision for you, that's fine. We're not going to complain about it though. If you say you're accepting of it, why are we still talking about it? Why are we still complaining about it? No, 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 no. If you are complaining about it, you're lying to yourself. You haven't accepted it yet. You don't feel at peace with it. So let's do something about it. That's the other thing is the golden handcuffs can cloud your judgment. But if you're saying, you know what? No, I want to stay because I make too much money and like the money's too good, fine. But then don't lie to yourself, right? Then accept the consequences of that choice. And that's okay, but you have to be accepting of it and make peace with it. We are at time. It is 1:36. Thanks for sticking with me for 6 extra minutes as we talked about AI and all these other things. I hope to see you next week. The link to the reset is in the chat with that $300 off discount code. Use it. I hope to see you next week, March 4th. We start. So I'll see you there. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you for showing up live.